So, welcome to this session. The emphasis is on bolstering the immune system, something that's good in the winter weather that we've been having here. Um, and to that end, there's some work that we're going to do on strengthening, a little bit on balance, and one or two inversions towards the end of the session. So that's the program. And we'll start with a breathing exercise. And I learned this from one of my colleagues. If you would do this with me and bring your hands together, clasp your hands together, and then when you turn your palms down to the floor, lower your hands to the level of your diaphragm, at the bottom of your rib cage, and your hands make the shape of your diaphragm when your fingers are domed upwards. And then if you press your hands down, it's as though the diaphragm would be moving downwards. Your elbows could be like your sides of your rib cage. So let's imitate a breathing pattern. When you breathe in, press your hands down, and that dome flattens and your elbows lift up again. And that gives space for the fullness of your breath. When you breathe out, then that dome moves up towards your lungs and you eliminate all the breath from your chest and your abdomen. So pressing down, the diaphragm moves down. You've got lots of space for the breath all the way into the abdomen. El- uh, your dome shape again, elbows move down, dome moves up, and pressing the breath out. And because you've got that connection between your hands and your breath, that might help anchor the attention to the breath a little bit more. So release your hands and just rest them onto your legs. And if you want to close your eyes here so you can better focus on your breath, then just picture the way the diaphragm is working. And inhale, chest and down into the abdominal cavity. And exhale, feel the dome of the diaphragm move up and releasing the breath out completely. Let's go several breaths like that. Feel the movement through the rib cage, the widening of the ribs, and the narrowing of the breath, the ribs as the breath moves out. See if you can keep your facial features passive and your shoulders passive too. So the breath is felt through the dorsal thoracic and the abdomen more than through the shoulder girdle. Your face is calm, relaxed, happy. And perhaps you've been extending the breath a little bit on both phases. So now allow the breath to come back to normal breathing. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. And let's get onto the mat. Take up a lying down position on the mat, on your back, with your legs bent and your feet near to your buttocks. This is a really lovely way to start practice because it builds up the momentum of the breathing at the same time as stimulates the digestion and the lower organs of the pelvis. Bend your knees into your chest, hold at the front of your knees. On an exhale, bring your thighs close to you. On an inhalation, fill your lungs, move your knees away. Exhale, there's a feeling of squeezing through the digestive elimination organs. And then on the inhalation, there's all the space that you can create with that incoming breath. When you bring your thigh bones towards your ribs, see if you can keep moving your sitting bones towards the floor. So even though the hips are in flexion, sitting bones towards the floor will keep your lumbar arch. It'll preserve that curve there. And let's just shift a little bit and lift your feet up towards the ceiling. Hold at the backs of your legs just below your knees. And exhale, thighs to chest. And inhale, straight legs, extension. Let's go between extension through your legs and flexion. And at the same time, still keep the sitting bones towards the floor. And let's do one more, which is a little bit more work for you. Interlock your hands behind the base of your skull, the bottom of your skull. Bring your elbows out wide to the side and just rest your feet on the floor for a moment. I think in the old days these were called crunches, but we're going to do them a little differently. On an exhalation, you're going to lift your head and your chest, keep your eyes on the ceiling, and then bring your thighs towards you. Release to the floor, inhaling. And exhale, thighs towards your ribs. Instead of bringing your chin towards your chest, just lift it a little bit. And inhaling back to the floor. Let's go back and forth between those two abdominal movements. It's kind of that squeezing feeling and then a complete release. And exhale, thighs in. Inhale, pausing, feet on the floor. And this time when you bring your knees in, take your knees a little bit to the right side and then turn towards the left. The right elbow's up, the left elbow's down. Back to center, and then right to the other side and looking to the right and knees to the left. Back to center and all the way down. So you did a nice movement for your oblique muscles, the muscles on the sides of your abdomen. Let's go one more time like that. Thighs towards your chest, lift up, turn to the left, bring your knees to the right. Back to center, torso to the right, knees to the left, and back, center and down. I think one more round, if this is working for you. Rest by all means if it's a little bit too extreme. And then back to lifting, rotating left, knees right, center, that left shoulder blade off the floor, and you're turning to the right, center to the middle, and down. And rest your hands onto your abdomen. Release any tension there at this time. And then let's come into all fours kneeling position. So once you're set up as you have done in knees underneath your pelvis and hands underneath your elbows and your shoulders, let's do a little rotation through the hips. Something hopefully that feels nice and warming and warming up your hips. The movement ripples up your spine right to your shoulders, so there's movement there too, and then go the other way. And your neck, your head moving with it. All right, Pause, center. And then from here, from child's pose, bringing your buttocks back towards your heels, we get to warm up your knees. And coming up again from child's pose into cat-cow, looking out towards the horizon, chest open, and all the way back. Feel that lovely movement, which is animated by your breath. Always the breath. Shoulders back, chest forward as you come up, and rounding the back as you come down. And one more child's pose. Lovely. One more cat-cow. Hold it there. And let's work on the strengthening movement now. And lift your right knee off the floor. Bring it towards your chest. Extend it back behind you. Keep the leg up. And lift up as though you had weight onto your leg. And you're resisting that weight by trying to lift it up. And then placing your right knee on the floor again. Lift your left leg up and bring it back. And then that imaginary weight onto that left leg and lifting up. And release. Let's go. Right knee comes in, chin to chest. Right leg comes back, lifting up. So the leg lifts, but not the hip. Let's bring that same leg in again. And back. And one more time. And back. Try to lift up against maybe a sandbag weight. And then we're ready for the second side. See if you can keep the hips relatively still, and then you'll be using your core muscles to do that. And lifting the left knee up, tuck in, stretch back. Tuck in, stretch back. Try to lift the leg up. One more time. And back. And then once you've replaced the left knee onto the floor, then come into child's pose as much as you can at the moment, or as little as you need to. And then have a look at your hands and turn your hands so the palms are upwards, the thumbs are downwards. I'm going to stay lifted up a little bit so I can see my wrists rotate there, and that's really good for your wrist health. Let's go back, 2 hands supporting underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. And we're going to do a little extension of what we've done for strengthening and working with the core muscles. So once you've bent your right leg in, right knee lifts up, bend your right knee in. See if you can do the same thing, but with your left elbow. Left elbow to ribs, and then extend the legs out, leg and arm at the same time. Tuck in, stretch out. Very hard to do this while I'm talking. Tuck in and stretch out. Do just the knee version if this feels like it's too strong for you at the moment. And that would be fine. And then left hand down, right knee down. Consolidate for a moment, relax your shoulders. And then let's start all over again. First, the left knee lifts up towards your chest, then the right elbow towards the ribs, and then stretch it out. You could still work with resistance here. And tuck and stretch. If you're noticing a big difference between the two sides, that's probably more normal than not. And then stretch it out, and right hand down, left knee down, and a good time for child's pose. It's really nice when you do yoga practice to do some intensity work, if that suits you, but then complete relaxation, complete letting go. Let go your shoulders. There's one more movement here, not so much strengthening, but really lovely work. Come back into child's pose. Bring your knees and your feet all the way together. And from this position, if you bring your right hip towards the floor, so leaning your right hip out towards the floor without lifting your left knee. Center yourself, and then the other direction, left hip to the floor. You're looking to the right side, and then back to center. What you did was a stretch for the IT band, the outside of the hip and the thigh. It's a band of muscles that really stabilizes the thigh bone into the hip. So let's go again. A stretch to the right. Right hip drops to the right. Left knee's on the floor. Stretch to the left. Go back and forth a few times. I think this is a nice movement for the lumbar part of my spine too. So it's supported in a rotation. Okay, and now buttocks back towards your heels. Part your knees a little bit, make space for your trunk to drop through. And child's pose, turn your palms up again. Open every one of your digits. Open your thumb, stretch the mound of the thumb as much as you can, just so it feels like a lovely counterpose to what you've been doing, weight bearing. And then 2 hands down again. Not quite finished here because we have dog pose. So support yourself through your hands. Lift your upper spine up towards the ceiling. Duck your chin down. Tuck your toes under. Lift your hips up. Let's be a little gentle here in warming up the backs of the legs just by pedaling your feet. And then still out of kindness to your hamstrings, step your feet out so that your little toes are on the edge of the mat. Your outer heels are towards the edge of the mat. And then keep a little bend at the back of your knees. And lift your buttock bones high. You can tilt your buttocks up like that. It keeps the lumbar arch, preserves it, the natural arch that's there. All right, and then last of all, bring your feet to hip width distance. Bring your hands shoulder width distance if they are not. And then lift your heels up as high as you can and give yourself a good toe stretch. My weight's towards the big toe base. My heels are just above my balls of my feet, so my feet perpendicular, and my buttock bones high. And I can stretch my shoulders maximally. Good. And then let's take rest again, and knees down, and draw your elbows in towards your knees. Rest on your forearms, fold your hands, and I'm going to make fists out of my hands, stack one on top of the other, and rest my head onto the top hand. Let every bit of effort go out of your shoulders. Good. And then come on up. And I have a couple of blocks here, yoga blocks. I'm going to place them on the high end where I've been working on dog pose so that I can practice a lunge. I'm going to be up kneeling and take my right foot forward and rest my hands onto the tops of the blocks. At the moment, my right leg, I've got a right ankle behind my right knee. I'm going to nudge that foot a little further forward of the blocks. So now I've got more than a right ankle and an obtuse ankle there. And as I go into this, my left leg, my lower leg wants to gravitate to the right side and bring my left lower leg to center and then a little bit more to the left side. And then taking a lunge as deeply as you want. Just any amount is fine. And then shoulders back. So we get a lovely psoas stretch at the front of that left hip. All right, and then we're going to step right leg back to the kneeling position, left foot forward. And propping myself up onto my hands means that I'm not collapsing in that left hip. I can lift up and out of my left hip, so a little space between the top of the left thigh and the lower left abdomen. And then right leg placed a little bit more to the right. And then if I nudge my left foot forward, I can take a deeper stretch through that important muscle that supports in the lower back, from the lumbar to the hip, the psoas muscle. Good. Let's have one more round, and it's right foot forward. And right foot forward, that's it. Good. Now, if you did want to lower down here, you could take your blocks down to medium range or even to the lower range. My arms are a little bit short, so I'm going to be on my fingertips on the low range, and then a deeper stretch through the back leg and the front of the left hip. And chest is high. And just to give yourself that extra challenge, imagine you're lifting your hands off of your support. Or maybe if you're steady in your balance, you could bring your hands up and overhead. Remember, when you take your arms overhead, you've changed the center of gravity, so you have to kind of plan for that movement. And then we're going to switch and bring the other leg forward with as much grace as possible. I've got a wall here that helps me. Okay, one side is different than the other. This one's a little bit more work, more motor planning to get into the same position on this side. And then from here, a little bit less weight onto your hands. I'm not going to take my arms overhead because I'm still working out my balance factor here. So, but light weight onto your hands and chest up, and that big stretch for the front of the right hip. All right, and then when you release, I'm going to take away the blocks and take a few breaths in child's pose again. But not for too long, because we've got a little bit more strengthening work to do. So let's return to dog pose. And when you've got that inverted V shape, whether the heels are up or down, that's up to you. Then from here, let's come into plank pose and bring your chest forward. I'm going to wriggle my feet back a little bit. So I've got a long line of my upper body. If you lift your buttocks up, then you miss some of that work in the straightening of the spine. So the hips are down slightly, and the thigh bones are up, and the chest is up. Good. All right, and then knees to the floor. Fold your arms, rest your head onto your hands. A little respite. but not for long. Let's go one more time like that, and plank. Engage your distance, legs away from the hips, and the chest up. And buttocks, instead of up, are contracted. The thigh bones right at the top of them into the femurs, into the backs of the legs, the hamstrings. Beautiful. And then bring your knees down. And without child pose this time, let's come into side lying position. And I'm going to take the position on my left side. Bend your knees and lying on your left hip now, create a right angle behind the backs of your knees. So my heels are in line with my knees, my knee in line with my hip. Now, prop yourself up onto your left elbow. That's it. And keep your forearm on the floor. So your forearm is part of your support for this pose. Your palm down, your elbow down. Bring your right hand onto your right hip. And then see how you go to lift that left hip off of the floor. And left hip comes up. And if you can, then right arm comes up too. Good. And then lower down. That took a little bit of organizing. And then while we're here, and so we don't have to fuss too much, what would the same pose be like if we straightened the legs out behind us? So we've got one long line of the front body and the legs together. And then we're going to see whether we can lift that lower hip off the floor. So with the help of your right hand, push off, lift up. Either keep your right hand on your right hip or on the floor or up towards the ceiling. Good. And then happily lowering down. That's a relief. And then other side. So the good thing about doing strengthening work is that it means that you're more aerobic. You have to breathe more. So I'm going to start with the bent leg version. So that's always an option if you don't want to move on to straight legs. And balancing your weight on your right hand and right elbow. Then first lifting up the right hip. So much easier than straight legs. And then left arm up towards the ceiling. Good, reaching up. Your head rotates easily. Look up with the raised hand. Or keep that hand on your hip if you need to. And then folding down to the floor. And see what it's like to have straight legs. So I guess this is called side plank. I don't know. Or maybe baby Vasisasana. And then I'm lifted now, my right hip off the floor. And I better stop talking for a moment and extending the left arm. And then down to the ground. And resting. Why not? Back to child's pose. If there was any more, I don't know, impetus of the breath, I'll let the breath come down now, calm down, relax. Lovely. And then finally, let's come all the way up to standing. All right. I have a chair here that I'm going to use so we can practice a little bit more balancing. And I'll have initially the chair away from the wall and the wall behind me for practicing balance. So let's see what that's like. So if you have your mat there, you want the legs of the chair on the edge of the mat so that it doesn't slip. And then I've got the wall behind me for balance. So take a position where you're standing on your own 2 feet. And then shift your balance of weight to your left foot, lift your right heel. You're going to lift your right heel up onto the chair. So you're one-legged balancing on your left leg. And then steady your balance and draw yourself up to your full height. Relax your shoulders. Bring your right hand onto your right hip. Bring your left arm up towards the ceiling. Then turn towards the right side and bring your left hand across your right leg to the outside of your right leg so that you can rotate your spine. So your trunk is extended upwards, crown of the head upwards. Then you're turning from your head, your neck, your shoulders, the upper part of your torso, down to about in your spine, T12. And then look over your left shoulder. Keep a little bend in your left leg so that you're not overextending your knee. It's got a lot of work to do here. And then let's release gracefully, right foot down alongside its mate. Pause, 2 feet on the ground, relax. And then let's balance on your right leg, lift your left heel, and then place your left heel onto the seat of the chair. Good. Pause there. And then left hand, left hip. Right arm up towards the ceiling. Lengthen as much as you can through the right side of your body for the rotation. And then bringing that right hand down to the outer left leg. Draw yourself up to your full height again. You might feel a stretch in the frontal hips. And then looking back. Can you see the wall behind you? And the shoulders rotating the upper part of your spine. And then look back to the right side. Look over your right shoulder. Good. And release. And left foot down. And take the chair and do place it against the wall now. So the high part of the chair right up against the wall. It's not going to slip. And then facing the chair, step back. Have a look where your feet are. You're about, 3/4 of a meter away from the chair. Step right foot forward a little. Step left foot back. So no more than a meter's distance between your feet. Take a moment and land on your feet in your asymmetrical stance. Draw the hips into center. And even here, feel the lifting through the frontal hip bones. And then at the same time as you bend your right knee, bring your arms up alongside your head. Inhale the arms up. Take several breaths here in your lunge position with the right leg forward. Bring the front of the left hip around and facing towards the chair too, and your right hip back. Exhale, bring your arms down at the same time as you straighten the front leg. Step left foot to right and right foot back. Good. Adjust the hips, bend the front leg, raise the arms. Warrior One pose. Feel your left footprint, but your right footprint too, and that will help you stabilize your pose. Lower your arms, straighten your leg, step up, step left foot back. Let's move on to Warrior Three pose with the help of the chair. So starting and leading with Warrior One, bend your front leg, bring your arms up. You're going to bring your hands onto the chair and raise your left leg behind you for Warrior Three. Lean over your right leg, reach for the chair, raise the left leg behind you. The nice thing about working like this for Warrior Three is that you can open your chest forward. So without cranking your neck, so the head is up, chest is up, the back leg is up. Feel the resistance of a weight, imaginary weight onto that leg, and then come back to ground. One movement, reaching the left leg back, and arms up, and arms down. And let's change the feet, and right foot back. Take Warrior One, and then moving into Warrior Three, reaching forward over the left leg, right leg up, good, and then working to lift that leg, but it's very heavy, and chest is up, lengthen the torso forward. Make sure that you're not overlocking the weight-bearing leg, your left leg, the knees a little bit bent, and then reaching that leg back, all the way back to come into Warrior One pose, and exhale down. Step up. Let's go through that sequence one more time. Good for balance, good for weight bearing. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, dive forward. This time, let's add another challenge for you. Square the hips. Right hip is up, left hip is down. Inner left knee is up. Inner arch of your left foot is up. And then from there, imagine that you're taking your weight off of your hands. You might do that. You might want to have your hands onto your hips. I'm going to stick with the chair for now, but a lighter weight onto your hands. And then think about it before you move. Flex your right knee. Look for the floor with your left hip. Warrior One pose. Pushing up. Exhale, arms down. One step forward. One step back. Take a moment in Warrior One pose. Feel the footprints again, left foot, right foot. Steady on your left foot as you dive forward. Bring your hands onto the seat of the chair, left leg, right leg up, sorry. All right. Keep a little knee bend, left leg. And then as you lift your right leg, you're still squaring your hips. So right hip's in line with the left. And then finally, imaginary lifting of your hands off the chair. Maybe you can do that for sure and bring your hands onto your hips. Otherwise, lightweight onto your hands. And then flex your left knee. Look for the floor with your right foot. Stay in Warrior One. One more breath. Inhale up. Exhale down. And when you step your right foot forward, you're well placed to do a supported dog pose stretch. So bring your hands onto the side of the chair. Step back. Step back to what you would feel would be a good stretch for dog pose, but with your hands and your arms supported. And lengthen back. Maybe you can create that feeling, like an imaginary helper. Even better if you have one there, is drawing you back through your hips. And just before you finish, lift your heels high, lift your buttock bones a little bit higher again. All right, and then tiptoe up to the chair and inhale, come up to standing. For the time being, we're finished with the chair, so I'm going to put it right out of way. All right, and then come onto your mat and have your one of your blocks handy. Face the long end of your mat and step out wide. I'm going to keep the block out a little distance from me at the center line of my body. And when I've done this, my feet facing directly forward, or maybe even a little bit turned in. Good. Keep your hands onto your waist or onto your hips. And in your most relaxed shoulder posture, the chest is up, but the shoulders are soft. And then feel here into the inner and the outer feet. Push out through the outer arches of your feet until the leg muscles engage a little bit more. And then take a bow forward, and from the crease of the hips coming forward, that crease deepens, and there's the block within distance, so you can rest the heels of your hands onto your block. Now we're in hamstring territory here, except that if your buttocks are rolling under, then you miss the stretch right at the top of the hamstrings. So let's see if we can lift the tailbone. That feels like a really nice adjustment for me that extends the hamstrings where they connect with the sitting bones. All right, and then bend your knees a little bit and inhale and come all the way up. And we'll next do a rotation. So bring your right hand out and place it at the top of the block. I've got the block on the high end. See if that works for you. You could take it down a peg if you like. Right hand on the top of the block, left hand, left hip, and then turn to the left. And you bring that top shoulder back a little bit further. That would be a nice adjustment. The top shoulder, the elbow. Good. Relax the lower shoulder. And then looking down and swap. And left hand is supporting, right hand, right hip. And then we're turning all the way around to the right, as much as you can. See if you can turn a little bit more from the bottom ribs. Good. Back to center. Let's add another movement. So support yourself with your hand onto the top of the block again. And that's your right hand, I believe. Good. And then you're turning and you're looking that direction to the left. Can you raise your left arm up? And if that feels way too strong in your shoulder at this time, we haven't done so much shoulder work, then keep your hand onto your hip. And before you finish here, then also look down. Look down where your hand is placed on the block. Good. And then left hand, left hip, push off and exchange your hands. Turn, turn, turn. Where you can turn is from your head and your neck and your shoulders and your dorsal thoracic. So we're not turning from the sacrum. We're turning the pelvis at the same time as the rest of the spine. And then we're trying on extending the arm up. And then the head rotates opposite and looking down. And bring that top hand back to the hip and inhale and come all the way up. And you've done Parvita, Prasarita, Padattanasana, which is a huge mouthful, and then stepping all the way back in. Okay, very nice work. And we're ready to take a seat for another rotation. I have a blanket here that I'm going to sit on, a little bit of support for my hips. And once seated, have your legs straight out in front of you. The pose is Marichyasana 1. And let's start bending the right leg and pulling the right heel in all the way to the right buttock. If I clasp my arms, if I hug the leg in like this, I can sit up well from my lower back. My chest is high and my shoulders relaxed. All right, and then we're going to do a turn away from that bent leg and cast your left hand behind you. Bring your right arm up towards the ceiling. Good. When you stretch up like that, lengthen all along the side of your body. And then bend your elbow and place the elbow against the inside of the knee. So it's right elbow against the inside of your right knee. And then bring your hand back a little bit more and turn. And there's a little contest here between the knee pressing against the upper arm and the arm pressing against the knee. And that lets you turn your ribs and your lung a little bit more to that side. Beautiful. And what if we're really efficient here and we release back to center, release that arm. We're going to switch directions. So keep that thigh bone hugged in next to your ribs and then turn to the right side, cast your right arm behind you, extend your left arm up, and then bring it all the way over the outside of the knee. If you can't, for some reason you can't reach across like that, it's fine just to keep the knee hugged in towards the chest. Let me go that one step further and use my elbow bone against my knee bone. My right forearm is perpendicular to the floor with my palm open like a halt sign, and then I'm turning from my bottom rib cage. We did the diaphragm exercises at the beginning of the class. So here your diaphragm is completely turned and rotated to one side, so it's got a big squeeze on it. So lift up out of the diaphragm. Lift the top chest. Good. And then let everything go. And we're ready to switch directions. And bend the left leg in. Your heel right up to your support or to your buttock bone. And then we're going away from the bent leg. So cast your right arm behind you. Bring your left elbow on the inside of your knee. And sit up tall and proud. Your chest high. You might get a little more out of this by taking your back hand back a little bit more. So it lines up with the center of your spine or even to the other side. And then let it go. Let's go to the left. Bring your right arm up and out to the outside of your knee. Now, what happened when I lifted my arm up? I got a little bit more rotation, but I also shrugged my shoulders. So I'm going to unshrug my shoulders, bring them down. Front chest is high, back chest is stretching down. Good. A little pressure against your knee, a little pressure knee against your elbow. Oh, very good work. And then let it go, and both legs extended. And we have one more seated pose here. I didn't mention the props that we needed for today, but a belt could be handy, and I may not use one. So we'll have those two variations. You can use one or not. Let's take a bent leg position with your right leg bent and your right heel close to the pubic bone. Extend your left leg out. It's like your left leg is in the splits, but your right leg is bent in Janu Shirsasana. Now, if you're going to use the belt, you can loop it over your foot and hold it with your hand near to your foot. The other way of working is to rest your left arm at the top of your left leg, palm upwards. And in either position, we're leaning out towards the straight leg as far as you can go. Good. Release your shoulders. And it's a big stretch for your lungs and the side of your diaphragm when you do this. Keep the back of your head back a little bit, and that will help you lift the front of your chest. And then let's complete the pose on this side by bringing the right arm up and stretching it to the left side. Be gentle with this because it's kind of unfamiliar territory. We don't stretch like this very often except in yoga, I think. Inhale, come up, and then change your leg position. Right, left leg when you bend it in, your heel's close to the pubic bone, and then a really good stretch of your leg out to the side, straight leg. Use your belt onto your foot where you can hold the belt near to your foot. And if you don't need to hang on to your foot, have the arm resting on the top of the leg and just lean out in that direction. It's kind of casual at first. It's just a gentle lean out. And nevertheless, a big stretch on the opposite ribs. And then let's bring the left arm up. Good. You remembered, like I did, to unshrug your shoulders, I hope. And feel your waist open up on that left side, your rib cage, your diaphragm. Bring the back of your head back a little bit so you sit taller. And then unwind and come up and extend the legs before you. Legs together, straight at the knees. And I promised a little work with inversions, and we'll do them in this manner with support. So the support comes from the wall. And with a blanket. So maybe let me demonstrate first. I'm just setting my blanket up near to the wall, and it's going to resemble shoulder stand, but we're doing a simple version of it, just using the strength of our legs. So when I lie down on my support, I'm going to finish up with my shoulders on the edge of this folded blanket and my feet and my legs onto the wall. So take a few moments just to get yourself into that position. I've got a space between my buttocks and the wall of about maybe 6 or 7 centimeters. And now I can play around with this, and I encourage it to be playful. So when I bend my legs and I have my feet on the wall, and I press my footprints on the wall, then I can start to peel my buttocks up and the lower part of my spine. Notice if you've pushed yourself off the edge of the blanket. And if you have, then rearrange yourself so that you've got that bit of shoulder support. And you've gauged the distance from the wall. So you're not going to slip off again. So let's do this a few times where pressing into your feet, you can lift up and lower down. Nothing in the extreme, so it feels for me like a little bit of a massage. But it's aided by using the strength of my legs and my buttocks to lift up and down. And then for the last time that I lift up, I'm going to come up so if I place my feet, I can create a right angle more or less behind my knees and lift the hips high enough, and I can reach underneath my buttocks and support just at the top of the buttocks with both hands. At this point, and you might just explore and see whether it's there for you. I can bring my elbows in a little bit closer. And as I do that, then I can lift buttocks a little bit higher. I'm not goal-minded towards that. I just want to protect my neck and my shoulders. Take a few more breaths there. If you are enjoying exploring this, you could try one leg up, away from the wall, straight up, replacing that foot, and then opposite leg extended up. The thing about extending one leg is that your hips are a little bit lighter at that point, so you might lift them a little higher. And last one. And then lowering down to the floor. What you can do at this point is scoot your buttocks away from the wall. So I've got my folded blanket there, but my buttocks are elevated, but my shoulders are on the floor. Shoulders on the floor. And let's do one more inversion, but very gentle one that I think you'll enjoy. I enjoy it. Roll off your blanket and come back to lying squarely on your mat with a foam block. So I'm lying on my back on my mat, and I've got my block. Any block that you use in yoga has 3 angles. It's got the upright, which is the tallest angle. It's got medium, and it's got the flat side. So I'm going to use my medium side and lift up buttocks away from the floor and place the block at the base of my spine. I lifted my heels to position the block like that. But now let's avoid the highest angle, but maybe if this is too strong for your sacrum, your lower back, then have it on the flat side. That's the beauty of what we do, is adjusting poses so that they give their benefits but without discomfort or definitely pain. So I mentioned that this can be at an inversion at this point. So once you're well supported there, the pose feels just really um, comforting and supportive. But take one foot off the floor, second foot off the floor, and then bring the legs up, extend the legs up. We've got a fairly straight leg position here, but if you've got tight hamstrings, it might work much better for you to keep a bend at the knees. So let's just hang out like this with a kind of shift in energy when you're upside down, with the fluids of the body moving towards the heart with the help of gravity, the vascular system, the lymphatic system. And here we're ready to move out of the position, so bending your knees, your thighs towards your chest. When your feet are on the ground, slip the block out. And then when you lie down, buttocks are back down to the floor. You might still feel the shape of the block a little bit. And release any tension in the thighs, in the groins. And then do set yourself up for the yoga relaxation. And it's important, we're in a winter period here, to stay comfortably warm. So get everything that you need, any props, any socks, and so forth. And I will too. Take time to do this, and when you do feel like you're set up for maximum comfort, all right, so I'm lying on my back. I've got a support for my neck and my head. One leg extends out, the second leg. Rock a little bit hip to hip or buttocks to buttocks and shoulder to shoulder. Rest your hands onto the bottom ribs, and when the hands are resting there, they're connected with the diaphragm again. And to the best of your ability, soften the upper abdominal muscles so that the diaphragm is completely free to breathe naturally. You could keep connected with the breath in that manner with your hands resting on to the ribs, or just drop your arms to the side. Palms upwards. Bring yourself into relationship with the whole body, head to shoulders, shoulders to your arms and your hands and fingers, hips to your knees and feet, the whole spine supported, and you're connected there, as you've been doing through the whole of the session. Give yourself over again to the observation of your breath. If other thought and activity encroaches, if you start noticing that the thinking brain is commenting or judging or planning, without stressing, bring your attention back to your breath. Patiently, in the practice of Shavasana, a pose that's definitely not about performance. It's really about connection with yourself. As you've been here for a few minutes, then the diaphragm, you might notice there's very little movement there now. And yet, you're still breathing. And as the breath becomes more subtle, then allow your awareness to become that degree of subtleness. Shortly, you could stay longer if you wanted to, but you probably need to be active again. So begin to deepen your cycles of breathing. And then take all the time that you need, a little stretching before you roll over onto your side. Before getting up. And once you're upright, slowly coming up, bring your hands into prayer position in the front of the chest. And as we were practicing in the beginning, opening your elbows out and lifting them slightly opens up the side ribs to the breath. And feel your own precious breath. We do the practice for our well-being and for our happiness and for our ease of living, but we also do it so that we can share that with those in our circle of friends and in the wider communities that we live in. So we say namaste. Thank you.